It's funny how time flies. I was digging through some old stuff the other day and stumbled upon my very first laptop, the one I used more than 14 years ago. The moment I saw it, a wave of nostalgia hit me. I remembered the night staying up playing tiny flash games, the sound of the fan spinning like a jet engine, and that one sticky key that somehow never worked right. But then I thought, what if I actually turn it back on? What if I try to upgrade this ancient thing and see if it can still run anything today? It sounds ridiculous, but also kind of exciting. So in this video, I'm bringing my first laptop back to life to see whether it still has a spark left after all these years. Let's power it on and maybe relive a little piece of the past. To make this upgrade a little more meaningful, let me tell you the story behind it. Most of you probably don't know this, but after my old PC finally gave up, I got my very first laptop, a gift from my parents when I was still in college. Back then, I could barely finish assignments on that old PC, let alone play games. I never had the courage to ask for a new one because I thought laptops were too expensive. But one day my parents surprised me with one anyway. I guess they didn't know all laptops aren't built the same. Because this one, well, let's just say it struggled to survive opening Chrome. Still, I loved it. I didn't want to disappoint them. The underpowered laptop ended up teaching me patience and curiosity. I started learning about tech just trying to make it run better. I learned how to edit videos, watched countless gaming channels, and dreamed about one day building a real gaming setup of my own. To really understand what I'm working with here, let's take a closer look at the specs and see if there's anything we can actually upgrade to make this thing remotely playable. First off, it took me a full minute just to boot into Windows. That's already a bad sign. So what I've got here is a Dell Latitude E5420, the true definition of a vintage office warrior. Inside, there's an Intel i3-2030M from the Sandy Bridge era, 2 cores, 2 threads. Modest clock speeds, but still enough for Word and light web browsing. When I double-checked, I realized the CPU actually has 2 cores and 4 threads, not just 2 threads like the software was showing. It's paired with 4 GB of DDR3 RAM at 1333 MHz, which in today's world where Chrome devours memory like a monster, is barely hanging on. The 320 GB HDD spins like a tiny jet engine, giving that classic retro delay every time you open something. The 14-inch HD LED screen 1366 by 768 pixel feels like a time capsule. Low resolution by modern standards, but at least the text is big and easy to read. And the 6-cell battery? If it's still alive, it'll last maybe 2 or 3 hours. Perfect for a short vintage cafe work session before you're hunting for a charger. I've got a few upgrades lined up for this old beast, and I'll show you exactly what they are in a moment. But first, let's take off the back cover and see what's inside. Honestly, after 14 years without a proper cleaning, I was expecting a miniature landfill in there. Surprisingly, it wasn't bad at all, and actually it looked pretty clean, like someone had already dusted it before me. Under the hood, there are 2 RAM sticks, each 2 GB and a good old mechanical hard drive. The main culprit behind that painfully slow 1-minute boot time. So I'm swapping that out for a Samsung 870 EVO 1TB SSD. That alone should make a massive difference. And sure enough, the laptop now boots into Windows way faster than before. Finally, I played a full HD video and yeah, it's kinda rough. The playback stutters, frames drop, CPU and RAM are maxed out. Once I switched down to 720p, things got smoother. No more buffering every few seconds. Still, the laptop's clearly working overtime. I mean, it's 14 years old, you can't really blame it. Next, I wanted to try something nostalgic. The very game I used to play on this laptop, Half-Life. Even with just 4 GB of RAM, it handled the game surprisingly well. A steady 60 FPS, sometimes even pushing past 90 FPS. Meanwhile, the CPU barely broke a sweat at 30% usage. Not bad at all for a laptop this old. Moving on to a game that actually came out 2 years before this laptop, Left 4 Dead. When there aren't too many NPCs, the FPS easily climbs above 50. But once the screen fills with smoke, gunfire, and chaos, it dips to around 27 FPS. Honestly, for a 14-year-old laptop, getting to play at that level back then would have felt amazing. Another one of my all-time favorites, Minecraft. At just 2 chunks, the FPS floats around 30, which isn't bad. But the moment I blew up a TNT block, boom, it tanked to 7 FPS, freezing for a few seconds. When I cranked it up to 16 chunks, the frame rate dropped to single digits, especially when looking over the whole map. And switching to fabulous graphics? Yeah, the laptop basically said, nope, I'm out. But let's be honest, keeping just 4 GB of RAM in 2025 feels kinda cruel. Open a few Chrome tabs, add Word and Excel, and this thing starts gasping for air like it's running a marathon. So it's time to give the E5420 a little boost of life. I'm upgrading it to 8 GB of RAM, 2 4 GB sticks running in dual channel. It's honestly one of the easiest and most effective revive upgrades you can do for an old laptop like this. A simple change that makes it feel young again. After upgrading everything, I decided to do one last quick test, just to see if any of this made a real difference. And honestly, it didn't. There was barely any improvement across all 3 games. At that point, it almost felt like all my effort and upgrades were for nothing. But hey, at least now I know, not every upgrade is worth it. In the end, I found out this old laptop can actually swap CPUs almost as easily as a desktop, and that instantly made my hands itch to tinker. I looked at the i3-2330M inside. It works, sure, but it always feels like it's running out of breath, especially when multitasking or watching high-resolution videos. So I decided to upgrade to an i5-2450M. It's the same Sandy Bridge generation, same socket. Basically, plug and play. The i5 is still dual-core with 4 threads, but it's clocked higher and has a larger cache. From old benchmarks and user reviews, it performs about 20 to 30% better than the i3-2330M in real-world use. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any stronger 4-core 8-thread chips for this platform. They're just too rare and overlooked by most sellers nowadays. I tested Left 4 Dead again, and while the overall FPS didn't jump dramatically, staying around 50 FPS like before, the average frame rate actually improved by about 20 frames, holding steady above 80 FPS. Gameplay felt noticeably smoother, especially during fast reaction moments and heavy combat scenes. Switching over to Half-Life, I finally started to see some real improvement. The FPS seems to be capped at around 100, but what really stands out is how much smoother everything feels now. The average frame rate increased by more than 20 FPS, and even during gunfights, the gameplay stayed responsive and stable. And honestly, that small boost can make a huge difference, especially in a fast-paced shooter. A few extra frames can mean the difference between landing the headshot or getting hit first. Sure, 100 FPS isn't anything special today, but remembering this laptop is more than 14 years old, it's honestly impressive. Watching it handle Half-Life this smoothly feels like reviving an old warrior. Not fast by modern standards, but still fighting strong. Switching over to Minecraft, I noticed a small but clear difference. The real-time FPS went up by about 10 to 15 frames, while the average FPS stayed around 5 frames higher, compared to the i3-2330M. In reality, these two CPUs aren't that far apart. Both have 2 cores and 4 threads, and the only major difference is that the i5-2450M has a slightly higher clock speed, reaching 3.1 GHz. But here's the thing, Minecraft mainly relies on the integrated GPU, and since both CPUs use nearly the same iGPU, the performance difference is minimal. So while the upgrade looks nice on paper, in practice, the game still feels pretty much the same. Testing again with a full HD video, I noticed the new CPU upgrade made a huge difference. Playback was completely smooth. No stutters, no lag, nothing. It handled 1080p way better than before, which honestly surprised me. But when I tried pushing it further with a few more games, that's where things started falling apart. The screen began flickering non-stop, almost like the laptop itself was begging me to stop. It's clear this old warrior has done its best, and maybe it's finally time to let it rest. After all these tests, one thing's clear. This old laptop has seen better days. Even Minecraft pushed it to its limits. Still, I can't hate it. It's the first laptop I ever owned. My gateway into the world of tech, creativity, and endless late nights. Sure, it can't run Windows 11, and sure, it's slow, but it's part of my story. So instead of tossing it, I'll let my sister use it for studying and presentations. It may be outdated, but it's still alive. And after 14 years, that's something worth celebrating. Like button and subscribe. There's a lot more classic tech chaos waiting to be uncovered.